Hello, and welcome back to the last Squid Game video, I promise. I've wanted to make this video as a follow-up to one of my shorts that garnered a lot of interest and debate, the one about how Gi-hun won every game by pure luck. I wanted to delve deeper and explain why the Dalgona game and the Squid Game itself were also matters of luck. Starting right off the bat, he was saved by Ali in the first game, when Ali caught Gi-hun just before the doll turned and detected him falling. I don't think there's a need for an explanation here. Ali is the real MVP. He didn't just save Gi-hun here, he saved the whole series. If Ali hadn't caught him, Gi-hun had no way of stopping his fall, and the doll would have seen him moving, resulting in his death. Now, Dalgona, this is where people start to debate, claiming this wasn't luck, but skill. For me, it was luck as well. Hear me out. The only reason he won this game and realized he could lick the shape to make it easier to carve out was because of the sweat drop that hit the shape. If the sweat hadn't hit the shape, he would never have figured it out. Yes, he knew the shape was made of sugar. We see him eating a piece in frustration. In my opinion, if this weren't luck and it truly was skill, he would have discovered much sooner that he could melt the shape from the back to make it easier to remove. But he didn't realize that. We also see that he finished the task just as the clock ran out. If the sweat had fallen even 1 second later, he would have been dead. If this isn't plot armor, I don't know what is. For the Tug-of-war game, he didn't do anything particularly special and was saved by Il-nam's strategy and Sang-woo's quick thinking at the end. Even before the teams were formed, it was Sang-woo who insisted they needed more men on their team because statistically, men are better at physical games. Gi-hun would have picked more women, thinking they might play elastics or gongi. If they had formed a balanced team of 5 men and 5 women, they would never have won this game, no matter how good the strategy was. This game was purely won because they had Il-nam on their team. The front man ensured they were matched against the weakest possible team. If they had faced Deoksu's team here, they would have been obliterated. Il-nam was an expert at this game. He obviously chose games he excelled at. He devised the winning strategy, how to position people, how to place their feet, and most importantly, how to anchor themselves for the first 10 seconds of the game to wear the other team down. However, as we saw during the game, this strategy alone wasn't enough. It was Sang-woo's brilliant idea to take 3 steps forward to unbalance the other team that secured their victory. As you can see, they had a brilliant strategy, and even so, they were very close to losing. Imagine if they had faced another team. They would have clearly lost. This is why I said the whole reason they won was because of Il-nam and the frontman's matchmaking, which ensured Il-nam's team would win. In the marble game, Gi-hun lost. There's no way to justify it. Il-nam beat him and quit the game, because he knew the glass bridge was next, and he wouldn't have stood a chance of surviving that game without revealing his true identity. For those who might comment that Gi-hun's kindness to the old man saved him, I'm here to tell you that's not the case. Gi-hun's kindness had nothing to do with it, and he's not as kind-hearted as some may think. Let's examine the facts. First, when they needed to form teams, Gi-hun only paired up with the old man because he was the last person available. Nobody else wanted to team up with Il-nam because of his age. There wasn't any kindness involved. Gi-hun simply had no other option. We see that he initially wanted to team up with Sang-woo, but Sang-woo had already partnered with Ali. Afterward, Gi-hun turned to the other 2 men from his group, but they also refused him. At one point, Gi-hun hesitated before inviting Il-nam to team up. Deep down, he knew having an old man as a partner would only be a disadvantage, which is why he didn't finish extending the invitation. However, I'll concede that he eventually went back to Il-nam after realizing the old man would probably die without a partner. I think this is the reason Il-nam let him win. He clearly wanted to quit after that game, and he gave Gi-hun his jacket to send him off to find someone else to play with, knowing he could retire without raising any suspicion. Going into the game, as I mentioned, Gi-hun lost, and the only reason Gi-hun wasn't killed by the guard was that Il-nam interfered and allowed him to cheat, pretending he didn't remember what Gi-hun had said earlier. This situation is very different from the one between Ali and Song-woo. Ali didn't know he was being played by Song-woo, but Il-nam knew Gi-hun was lying when he changed his declaration to even. We see this clearly when Il-nam confronts Gi-hun after he refuses to bet everything they have, demonstrating that Il-nam intentionally let him win. For those who argue that Gi-hun felt terrible because the old man died, I'd say he felt terrible not because Il-nam might die, but because he effectively caused his death. Gi-hun wasn't remorseful over Il-nam's fate. He was guilt-ridden because Il-nam knew he had been tricked and still accepted it. Look at what happens before Il-nam admits he knew Gi-hun was cheating, how Gi-hun is begging and shaking the old man, desperately trying to get him to play one more round to win the last marble. Think about that moment. Il-nam appeared to be a senile old man with early dementia, and Gi-hun didn't care about his condition. He only cared about winning that last marble. He didn't feel bad then, even as he cheated to stay in the game. When Il-nam suggested they play one more game, betting everything they had, look at Gi-hun's response, calling the old man nuts for wanting to bet everything on just one marble. His expression and body language showed how strongly opposed he was to the idea. However, once Il-nam admitted that he knew Gi-hun had cheated to stay in the game, everything changed. Only then did Gi-hun start to feel bad. This doesn't come across as the actions of a kind or compassionate character. To me, this clearly exposes him as someone who isn't genuine. His remorse only surfaces when he's caught. Gi-hun didn't play the next round because the old man simply gave him the marble, effectively letting him win. So in conclusion, this victory was purely luck. For those who believe Il-nam let Gi-hun win because of his kindness, I strongly disagree. I think Il-nam was actually disappointed in Gi-hun at that moment, realizing that he was no different from all the other players who had joined the game. Moving forward, the glass bridge is by far the luckiest game of all. Gi-hun almost chose the first position, but the other participant asked for it, leaving him to go last, the most advantageous spot. Even so, if it weren't for Se-byuk reminding him of the correct first tile, he would have faced a 50-50 chance of dying, even as the last player. As for the final game of Season 1, the Squid Game, Sang-woo essentially sacrificed himself to let Gi-hun win. Before anyone rushes to argue that Gi-hun defeated Sang-woo and that Sang-woo only killed himself afterward, I believe you're overlooking a crucial point about the psychology behind the Squid Games. The players are individuals willing to do whatever it takes for money, often abandoning their humanity to win the grand prize. While Gi-hun may have won the physical fight, he did not win the game. At the last moment, he invoked the third clause of the contract, effectively ending the game and forfeiting the prize. In Season 1, the key difference from Season 2 is that if the players agreed to end the game and leave, the prize money wouldn't be split among them. Instead, it would go to the families of the deceased players. Gi-hun's decision to stop the game could be seen as noble, but from Song-woo's perspective, it makes little sense. After surviving all those horrors, why give up at the very end? This is further emphasized in the moment when Gi-hun offers his hand to help Song-woo. If Sang-woo truly wanted to win, he could have grabbed the knife and killed Gi-hun. He had no hesitation when it came to killing Se-byuk earlier, but in this scene, he chose to accept his defeat. By ending his own life, Song-woo ensured Gi-hun's victory. I also consider this luck, because if Sang-woo hadn't ended his own life, Gi-hun would have dropped the game entirely. So yes, this was also luck. You could argue otherwise, but the win doesn't truly belong to Gi-hun. It's like a sprinter in first place, stopping just before the finish line, waiting for others to cross together. That's not winning. Now let's move to the Russian roulette scene in Season 2. This game is the very definition of luck. The most logical decision in that moment would have been to take the gun and eliminate the salesman, but instead, Gi-hun decides to gamble, purely to prove a point. This is the clearest indicator that, despite everything he's been through, at his core, he's still a gambling addict. As for red light, green light, once again, Gi-hun's survival was thanks to someone else, Cho Hyun-ju. I know some of you call me out for referring to her as the trans woman, the short I posted, but that wasn't intentional. It was just a simpler way to recall and reference her at the time. There's no need to elaborate too much here, because it's obvious. If it weren't for her grabbing onto the player as he fell, Gi-hun would have been dragged down with him. In the six-legged race, Gi-hun was undoubtedly the weakest player. While everyone else cleared their challenges on the first attempt, Gi-hun struggled noticeably. I'm excluding the frontman from this comparison, because he was clearly sabotaging the process and stalling for time, likely because he didn't expect Gi-hun's team to perform so well. Many of you might already be familiar with the theory about the frontman being left-handed. When he failed the spinning top challenge, he was using his right hand, but when he switched to his left, he cleared it on the first try. Interestingly, Lee Byung-hun, the actor portraying the frontman, revealed a funny behind the scenes. He consistently succeeded with his left hand during filming. To ensure the character failed, he had to deliberately use his non-dominant right hand. Now back to Gi-hun's performance in the six-legged race. He nearly failed entirely and only succeeded because the frontman stretched his leg to hit the final jegi for the fifth time. While it's fair to argue that the frontman's deliberate stalling reduced Gi-hun's chances, the fact remains that everyone else on his team completed the challenge on their first try, except him. As for the mingle game, Gi-hun didn't contribute much here either. Everyone simply followed his instructions, which isn't a mark of good leadership. Throughout this game, he displayed no meaningful strategy or initiative. Take the first round, for example, when the required party size was 10. Cho Hyun-ju's group had 9 members, and Gi-hun hesitated, failing to act decisively on how to get the last member. It was Cho Hyun-ju who ultimately resolved the situation and ensured the team met the necessary requirements. If Gi-hun were truly a good leader, he would have set clear rules after the first trial to prevent confusion and ensure the team functioned effectively. For example, if the required number was less than 5, there should have been a predefined plan. Perhaps player 001 could step out to find another team when the required number was 4, or both Youngbae and player 001 could look for teammates if the number dropped to 3. Such structure would have eliminated chaos and improved their efficiency. Instead, Gi-hun did nothing to organize or strategize. Other players left the team on their own initiative, and Gi-hun never had to struggle to secure teammates. The next round further highlighted his lack of leadership. When the 4-member requirement was announced, Gi-hun appeared confused and wasted valuable time. A confident leader or someone with strong networking skills would have immediately left to form a team. Instead, it was the frontman who took initiative and sought out other team members. Gi-hun's indecisiveness directly impacted the outcome for others. For instance, Kim Si-eun might have survived if Gi-hun had a plan in place for who should leave the team based on the announced requirements. The chaos and confusion at the start of that round wasted 10 to 15 crucial seconds, time that could have saved Kim Si-eun's life. This again seems like luck rather than skill or leadership. People followed Gi-hun for no discernible reason other than his status as a previous winner, which doesn't reflect any true leadership qualities. In conclusion, at least in my opinion, Gi-hun won every game by pure luck, not by compassion or kindness.